Good morning, family, and welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2008, and today we're reading Exodus chapter 14, which is a tremendous chapter, and I strongly encourage you, as always, to read it for yourself and see what you get from it, and you can email us and add us to the blog. But we see here in this chapter that this is actually coming to the head or the end of their conflict, even with the Egyptians. And there's really a lot in this chapter, and I'm going to attempt my best to put as much as I can in Lessons for Life, but I'm going to encourage you again to read it through for yourself, because there's so much in here, and there's more that you can get from it, I'm sure. But we see that Moses and the children of Israel have been led into the wilderness, and they come up by the sea, and the Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart, and he now follows after them because he wants them to be servants again. They start to say, well, why do we let them go? We should never let them go. We should keep them and have them remain as our servants. So they follow after them. And we see quite a bit here, because now the children of Israel are up against the bank of the Red Sea, and the Egyptians have followed behind them with all their chariots, all their horses, all their armies. And there's several things that happen at this point where we see Moses talks to the people, and he says to them, "Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." So they started to get worried, they started to get upset, or they started to question Moses and say, why did you bring us out here? Did you bring us out here so we could die in the wilderness because there's no graves in Egypt? And he says, "Fear not, stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord." And that was so, right there, it's just the beginning of my Lessons for Life for today, about how Moses, what he said to them, because as we were talking about before, this is a partnership. This is a partnership with them, and the Lord is going to, he says, the Lord will, you see the salvation of the Lord. He even goes further in the next verse to say, the Lord will fight for you, just hold your peace. So we see that the Lord is actually going to do this for them, but it's a partnership, and a partnership means that both people have to be involved, both people have to be doing something. So, the Lord couldn't have just fought the battle for them out of when they was in Egypt. They had to make that step of faith, as we were talking about the other day, step of faith and change from their comfortable situation and come out of Egypt and get the process rolling, get the ball rolling in their deliverance, really. And then that begins their partnership with the Lord. But now at this point, Moses telling them, just stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord. The Lord's going to fight your battle. Just hold your peace. So that shows how a partnership even works, that they start off the first part, and then they let the Lord do the rest, which is an interesting way to look at it, because you have to see that the Lord didn't do it all for them, but He's really doing the majority of the work. All they had to do was start off on the act of faith, and then the Lord was going to do the best. And that's how partnership with God actually will work. Where when you're partnering with the Almighty, you have to just show your faith, and you have to make that step of faith, make that step in the direction. But then the Lord is going to do the majority of things, because that's how the partnership with the Almighty works. But then we see also here, going a little bit further, that the Lord actually tells Moses a little bit further, because now he said, Moses told them, stand still. But I believe the Lord actually corrected Moses just a little bit, and he said, well, why are you crying to me? Go tell your people to move forward. Remember, this is a partnership, so we have to, the people can't just stand still and let the Lord do everything. They still have to keep going forward. They still have to keep pursuing their deliverance. They can't just wait for the Lord to do it all for them, but they have to be partners with it, and partners, both people are doing something. Even though the Lord is doing, according to what, as I'm reading here, the Lord is doing the majority of this battle. He's fighting the Egyptians. He has that pillar of cloud that actually is moved from in front of them to behind them, and the angel of the Lord actually has got their back now. That was really preparing their way, but now it's moved to get their back to hold off the Egyptians. But it's a partnership still. So that's one important thing that we can see in the Lessons for Life, that's how the partnership works with the Almighty, where you have to continually keep doing, you have to continually keep persevering, continually keep moving forward, even though you're partnering with the Almighty, you have to keep doing your part, however little, however small it may be, just activating your faith, activating your belief that you'll get this deliverance, and then the Lord will be your partner with the rest of it. But you can't just wait for the Lord, for Him to do everything, because that's not how a partnership will work. So we see something in that Lessons for Life, and then we see something even a little bit more as I was reading. I was watching, because now Moses actually is able to deliver them from the Egyptians. As you read through, I'm kind of skipping through a little bit, and we know of Moses as being a great leader because he's led the children of Israel out of Egypt. Now they haven't gotten to the Promised Land yet, but he's led them out of Egypt. And so, if you want to be a great leader and you want to be whatever you want to be, you have to look at someone else who's done it before and kind of follow the pattern that they've done. So whether it's a leader, whether it's if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, you find someone who's done it and you follow the pattern, and that'll make your path that much easier. So I was looking at Moses, and I see that he was great. He was a great leader. He led the children of Israel out of Egypt, and so I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing that we saw how the beginning, the progression of him, and how we talked about that before. How Moses was questioning the Lord so many times before at the beginning, but it was a gradual process for becoming a leader. It wasn't automatically he turned into a leader. And I see now, even through these present circumstances, now that he's actually fulfilled that part of it, we've gotten them out of Egypt, and the Egyptians actually are defeated. And I look at it, I'm saying, what made Moses such a great leader? And I see, and to me it kind of, not to belittle it, but it seemed very easy of what he did. And what he did was he followed the Lord. He listened to the Lord. Because now you see the Lord says, lift up your rod and do this. And Moses doesn't question, just does it. And you see a miracle take place. So what Moses did to be a great leader was he just simply followed the Lord, and he didn't question anything that the Lord told him to do. He just did exactly as the Lord commanded, and by doing that he was able to lead the people out of Egypt. And that's what made him a great leader, by being able to be a follower of the Lord and listening to the Lord and really hearing the Lord for himself. So as I'm even talking to you, I encourage you, and I always tell you, you want to be a leader and not a follower. But a leader is one that is really listening to the voice of the Lord and hears the voice of the Lord. And for me to tell you to be a great leader is for me to really encourage you to listen to the voice of the Lord for yourself and to hear the voice of the Lord. Because there's only so much I can do as your parent, as your father. Or there's only so much your mom can do as your mother. We can't live your life for you. But we can encourage you, we can teach you, we can instruct you so that you can be a great leader for yourself, so that you can hear the voice of the Lord for yourself, so that you can, really take hold of the future, your destiny for yourself, because we can't do it for you. No matter how much we may want to, no matter how much we may want to fight this battle for you or fight that battle for you, we can't do that for you. So the great leader is the one that hears from the voice of the Lord. And even Bishop had touched on that in his message on Sunday, saying that, you can't expect the people to do stuff for you. You have to actually take up and do stuff for yourself. You can't expect someone to fast for you. You can't expect someone to be praying for you or anything like that. You have to take it up and do it. You take it upon yourself to do it. And that's what even being a great leader is about too. Instructing the people that are with you to do these things for themselves, and not just be relying on dependence, just like how Moses had to lead these people out by telling them to go forward. They couldn't just stand still. Not as he had said at first, he said stand still, but then the Lord, I believe, corrected them a little bit and said, you can't just stand still, you still have to go forward. You still have to go forward. And so that's what another lesson for life I got out of this. And this is one more thing I definitely want to bring up even in this chapter before I end. I know there's a lot, but this is really like I said, the head of this whole battle with the Egyptian. So there's one more point I want to bring, which is important. And as Moses was saying to people about, the Lord will fight your battle for you. And then you see the Egyptians follow them into the Red Sea after he parted the Red Sea. And we see some of the Egyptians now starting to say, well, let's kind of stop, let's turn back or whatever, because the Lord is fighting against us. So the Lord is fighting for, the children of Israel. And there was something I heard just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not one that watch any like the TV ministries at all, really, but I was turning the channel and I saw something for a few minutes. I just caught this actual portion of it, and it was from Dr. A.R. Bernard, and something he said several years ago, but it was just I guess replaying and re-airing on TV, and it applies to even this thing right here. And the point of what I'm saying here is, when they were saying that, the Lord is fighting for the children of Israel, He's fighting against us, what He said, and I'll put it in this context, is the Lord is, God is not one that takes sides. He's not one that, will say, we'll use God like a pawn, so we'll make God go against this person, make God go against that person. That's not how God works. It's not for God to be on your side. If you understand, it's not for God to be on your side, but it's actually for you to be on God's side. And I thought that was so, even like I said, I watched it for a few minutes, and I thought that was such a profound statement, that it's not for, God to be on your side. So, let's say whatever I'm doing, then God is going to be on my side. If I'm doing right, He's going to be on my side. If I'm doing wrong, He's going to be on my side. No. It's for you to always be on God's side. So that's a different way of looking at things, and it kind of changed a little bit of the thinking I had before. Not to say that I was expecting God to do wrong, to support my wrong, but it really just changed how I was thinking, or it made me think a little bit further about how it actually works. That it's more for us to be on God's side. As the children of Israel were on God's side, because they was going to worship God and they were doing the will of the Lord. And it's not that, they were using God against the Egyptians, but no, the children of Israel were on God's side. And I thought that was a profound statement, and I saw how it even applied to this, because even how the Egyptians that saw it said, oh, well, God is working against us. But no, the children of Israel were on God's side. And that's what we need to be in our lives too, on God's side. So with that, that was today's extended lessons for life. There's really so much in this chapter, but we see now, as we said, it came to the end of the challenge with the Egyptians. But hopefully you got something out of this. Create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we will talk again tomorrow.